Once upon a time, beyond rolling hills and whispering forests, lay Dracora, a land of wonder where dragons soared the skies and winged horses raced the wind. At its heart stood a grand castle, home to King Cedric and his son, Prince Elias. Though he had all the comforts of royalty, Elias often gazed beyond the kingdom's borders, longing for adventure. He dreamed of flying, of touching the clouds, of finding something greater than the castle walls. Every night, Elias climbed the tallest tower, watching the distant mountains fade into darkness. His heart ached for the unknown. Tales of sky riders filled his thoughts, warriors who tamed the wind, soaring on dragons and winged steeds. But they were just legends, or so he believed. The stars shimmered above, distant and untouchable. Then, one night, as he stood in quiet longing, the air shifted. A warm gust swirled around him, carrying the scent of ancient fire. Elias turned sharply. There, on the balcony, stood a dragon. Its golden scales glowed in the moonlight, its eyes deep and knowing. The beast radiated power, yet remained still, waiting. Dragons were rare, nearly forgotten by men. Yet here one stood, its gaze locked on Elias as if calling him forward. The wind stirred again. A silent message filled the air. Come. The prince's heart pounded. Was this a dream? Or was fate reaching out, offering him the adventure he longed for? The dragon stretched its massive wings, motioning toward the sky. Elias understood this was his chance. His breath caught as he stepped closer, placing a hand on the dragon's warm scales. No words were needed. With a steady grip, he climbed onto its back. The dragon let out a low growl, almost a chuckle, before leaping into the night. Wind roared around them. The castle shrank below. The prince had left his kingdom behind, flying toward the stars. His adventure had begun. The world spread beneath him. Rivers like silver veins, forests like emerald waves. The stars felt closer now, as if whispering secrets only the sky could know. The dragon's wings cut through the night, gliding effortlessly over the land. Elias felt his fear melt away, replaced by wonder. They flew beyond the borders of Dracora, past valleys untouched by time. Then, in the distance, something shimmered, a secret hidden from the world. A valley bathed in silver light. Nestled deep in the mountains lay a breathtaking sight. Winged horses. Their coats gleamed like pearl and onyx, their vast feathered wings glistening in the moonlight. They moved like whispers, their hooves barely touching the earth. The dragon descended gently. Elias slid from its back, his heart racing with awe. One horse stepped forward, her coat white as falling snow. She held his gaze, her eyes deep and wise. In that moment, Elias knew she was waiting for him. Slowly, Elias reached out, placing a hand on the Mare's strong neck. She did not flinch. Instead, she lowered her head, inviting him forward. He took a deep breath and swung onto her back. The moment he settled, her wings unfurled. Then, with a powerful leap, she soared into the sky. The wind rushed past. The world blurred below. For the first time, Elias felt truly free. They climbed higher, past clouds kissed by moonlight. He was no longer just a prince. He was a sky rider. As dawn painted the horizon in golden hues, Elias knew his life had changed forever. He had flown beyond the world he knew, touched the sky, and seen the magic hidden within it. His heart no longer ached with longing, it beat with purpose. As the winged mare carried him home, the dragon flew beside them, a silent guardian of the skies. And as the sun rose over Dracora, Elias smiled. His adventure had only just begun. Elias soared above the kingdom, the wind rushing past. His winged steed, Solara, flew alongside the golden dragon. But as they approached Dracora, something was wrong. Smoke curled from the castle towers. The banners of his father, King Cedric, were gone, replaced by dark sigils. A chill ran through Elias. Had the kingdom fallen? He urged Solara forward, his heart pounding. The castle gates were sealed. Guards in black armor patrolled the walls, men Elias had never seen before. His father's knights were nowhere to be found. A deep voice echoed from the courtyard, booming like thunder. Dracora belongs to King Vaelor now. Kneel or perish. Elias clenched his fists. Vaelor, the exiled warlord, a man of dark magic. He had taken the throne in Elias's absence. Elias could not fight an entire army alone. He needed allies. He turned to the dragon. We must go to the Valley of Elders. If anyone can help us, it's them. The dragon gave a knowing nod and took flight. Solara followed. As they soared away, Vaelor's mages sensed the disturbance. "The prince has returned," cried a sorcerer. A dark arrow of fire shot toward the sky. Elias barely dodged in time. War had begun. The Valley of Elders lay beyond misty mountains, hidden from time. Only those who sought truth could enter. As Elias and his companions descended, glowing runes pulsed in the ground, whispering forgotten wisdom. An ancient voice echoed, "You carry the blood of the Sky Riders. You have awakened the prophecy." Elias shivered. He had heard legends of the Sky Riders' warriors who could control the wind itself, but he never believed them. Until now, an elderly seer stepped forward, her silver eyes piercing. "Elias, you're the last heir of the Sky Throne. Vaelor stole the kingdom, but he fears you. Only one weapon can defeat him, the blade of ours." The name sent shivers through the valley. It was no ordinary sword. Forged from starlight, it could cut through shadows and magic alike, but it was lost deep within the dreaming forest, where nightmares took form. Elias had no choice. With Solara and the dragon, he journeyed into the forest. The air grew thick, whispering with unseen voices. Shadows danced between the trees, twisting into shapes of forgotten fears. Suddenly, a phantom knight emerged from the mist. His armor gleamed, but his eyes were hollow. "Turn back, Prince. The blade does not belong to you." His voice echoed, filled with sorrow. Elias gripped his sword. "I seek the blade of Aurus." The knight raised his own weapon. "Then face your greatest fear." The air around Elias shifted. He was no longer in the forest. Instead, he stood before Dracora's throne room, but it was ablaze. His father lay before him, chained and broken. Vaelor stood over him, laughing. "You were too weak to save them." Elias's hands trembled. Was this real, or was it the forest's magic? The nightmare tightened around him, choking his thoughts. But then a whisper, "Remember who you are?" The voice was soft, yet strong. Solara's eyes glowed, grounding him. "This is not real." Elias took a breath. With a mighty roar, he swung his sword, shattering the illusion. The phantom knight nodded in approval. The trees parted, and there, on an ancient pedestal, lay the blade of Aurus gleaming with celestial light. Elias reached for the sword. As his fingers brushed the hilt, a wave of power surged through him. The blade of Aurus recognized him. It was his by right. He turned to Silara. "It's time to take back Dracora." But as they mounted, the ground trembled. The shadows of the forest had not vanished. They had been watching. A monstrous figure rose from the darkness, a night beast, Vaelor's creation. The beast lunged, its claws tearing through the trees. Elias barely dodged, his heart racing. The dragon roared, unleashing a storm of fire, but the night beast did not burn. Only the blade of Aurus could end it. Elias gripped the sword and leapt from Silara's back, diving straight toward the creature's core. With one swift strike, the blade of Aurus pierced the beast's heart. A burst of light erupted, sending darkness scattering. Silence fell. The night beast was no more. Elias stood, panting. The sword hummed with power. The sky had cleared. The shadows had retreated. But this was only the beginning. Dracora still needed saving. He turned to his companions. "We ride for the kingdom. Vaelor's reign ends tonight." Silara neighed in agreement. The dragon let out a fierce cry. The war for Dracora had begun. Elias, the last sky rider, rode toward Dracora, the blade of Aurus pulsing with light. Silara, his winged steed, soared beside the golden dragon. The Valley of Elders had given him strength, but now he faced his true test. The tyrant King Vaelor awaited, his dark forces prepared. The sky above Dracora rumbled, as if the heavens themselves sensed the coming war. As they approached, the sight was worse than Elias feared. The once proud city was shrouded in darkness, the castle's towers wrapped in black tendrils of magic. The people were imprisoned, forced to kneel before Vaelor's sorcerers. A booming voice echoed from the throne room. "You returned, boy. You should have stayed lost." Vaelor had been waiting. Elias landed at the castle's entrance, but he was not alone. The knights of Dracora, freed by his allies, charged behind him. The gates erupted in flames as Vaelor's army emerged, shadow beasts, dark knights, and robed mages with eyes like burning embers. Elias raised his sword, its light cutting through the darkness. "For Dracora," he roared. The battle had begun. The dragon unleashed fire, scorching enemy ranks. Silara dove through the battlefield, her hooves striking down shadowy specters. Elias fought like a warrior borne his sword, clashing against dark knights, slicing through their cursed armor. But Vaelor's sorcerers conjured storms of black fire, forcing him back. Lightning split the sky. The air crackled with dark magic. From the castle's highest balcony, Vaelor stepped forward, his black robes flowing. He raised a staff of obsidian, and the battlefield trembled. The shadows merged into a single monstrous entity, a being of pure darkness, towering over the kingdom. "You cannot defeat the void, boy," Vaelor sneered. The creature lunged. Elias closed his eyes, feeling the energy of the blade of Aurus. A voice whispered from the past. "Remember who you are. You are the Sky Rider." Light surged through his veins. When he opened his eyes, his entire body glowed like the sun. He lifted his sword skyward. The clouds parted. The heavens roared. And thewings of light erupted from his back. Gasps spread across the battlefield. Elias had become something more than a prince. He was the heir of the Sky Throne. With a single beat of his luminous wings, he shot into the sky, facing the monstrous shadow. The creature swiped at him, but he dodged midair, moving like pure wind. Then, with a final mighty swing, he drove the blade of Aurus into its heart. For a moment, silence. Then light exploded outward, shattering the monster into a million shards of fading shadow. Vaelor screamed as his magic unraveled. The darkness around the city lifted, the sky clearing. The people of Dracora fell to their knees, watching in awe. The tyrant's reign was over, but Vaelor refused to surrender. He leapt from the balcony, landing before Elias. His eyes burned red, and his body twisted with magic. "I will not fall alone," he roared, summoning a final curse. The ground cracked beneath them, shadows coiling like snakes. He lunged at Elias, a dagger of darkness in his grasp. Elias didn't hesitate. With a swift, precise strike, he drove the blade of Aurus through Vaelor's chest. The tyrant gasped, his power draining like a dying flame. He stumbled back, eyes wide in shock. "Impossible," he whispered before collapsing. His body crumbled into dust, carried away by the wind. The war was over. The sun rose over Dracora for the first time in years. The people cheered as Elias stood victorious. The remaining soldiers laid down their weapons. The kingdom was free. Elias turned to Solara and the dragon, their eyes filled with pride. But something called him something greater. Elias knew he could not stay. He was no longer just a prince. He was a sky rider meant to protect more than just one kingdom. He turned to the people. "Dracora will rebuild stronger than ever, but my journey is not over." The elders nodded in understanding. As the wind carried him skyward, Elias looked down at his home one last time. He was no longer just a warrior or a ruler. He was a legend. He smiled, gripping the blade of Aurus. The sky was calling, and with one last beat of his wings, he soared into the horizon toward new adventures, new realms, and new destinies. And so, as the stars twinkle in the night sky and the wind whispers through the ancient lands, the legend of Elias, the Sky Rider, lives on. Though his journey has ended here, new adventures await beyond the horizon. Perhaps one day we will hear of them again. But for now, let your dreams take flight, and may the magic of this story stay with you until morning. Sweet dreams, brave traveler. If you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more magical bedtime stories, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new tale. Sweet dreams, and see you in the next story.